10-Minute Jazz Lesson, episode 52. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 52 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast. We made it. We made an entire year's worth of weekly episodes that are giving you an awesome jazz lesson delivered straight to your inbox each and every single week. So we really want to say a big thanks to all of our faithful listeners out there. We definitely wouldn't be doing it without you guys, and I really appreciate you tuning in every week. Hey, can you use some great extra material to practice every single month? Well, I know I can, and now you can too. For only $5 a month, you can join our Inner Circle membership where you get a brand new transcription every single month. And what I do is not only are you going to get the transcription, but you're going to get all of the useful vocabulary pulled out of that transcription and put on a ready-made vocabulary list for you that you can practice, learn a bunch of new material, get some brand new lines into your playing, and ultimately improve every single month. That's only $5. I think that's a pretty good deal. So go onto our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, and click on the Inner Circle tab, see all the benefits that you're going to get from that membership, and it also really helps the podcast out to keep going, and you get some fantastic materials in return. So please go and check that out. Again, that's the Inner Circle tab on the website 10minutejazzlesson.com, which I know you're going to every single week to get your free PDFs from every single episode. So take a moment, give us that $5 donation every month, and I think you'll be very happy with the results. Okay, so today we're going to talk about guide tones. This goes back to one of the first episodes we ever did on the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast, where we talked about thirds and sevenths over the blues. We're going to be talking a lot about those today, but we're going to be doing it in a little bit of a different way. And I'm going to present the information to you in a different format so that you understand that it's not just limited to thirds and sevenths, even though that's what we're going to do today, because that is the most sensible place to start your journey to learning your guide tones. Now, little disclaimer before we start, this isn't the most sexy material in the world. It's not, I'm not giving you a bunch of amazing, augmented lines or giving you anything that's going to be really flashy, but this is some of the most important core knowledge that you need to have in order to become a great improviser. The last thing any of us want to do is have a bunch of flashy lines up our sleeve, but not really understand the theory and the way that the musicians we got the lines from built them. Because you have to understand that some of these jazz pioneers that you're learning all your flashy stuff from, they didn't have anybody to come up with this stuff. They came up with it from scratch. And these guide tones are some of like the base core knowledge that every single jazz musician needs to know. So while this might not be the most flashy stuff in the world, I can promise you that it is some of the most important. So what are guide tones? Guide tones are simply notes from the chord that guide us through the harmony. So, we've talked about the importance of the third and seven, and the reason that those notes are so important is because they really, really guide us through the harmony of most tunes. When somebody's sitting down to write a piece of music, they're not just pulling chords out of a hat and kind of throwing them all together. They're actually using their knowledge of music theory and, the study of great composers that have come before them to actually come up with a composition that makes sense. And most of the time, these guide tones, you can actually tell a good composition by how the guide tones line up. So today we're going to go back to our old friend, the blues, because that is, our base of knowledge. If we could play over the blues, we can play over just about anything else. So we're going to be talking about these guide tones over the blues. So what we're going to start with is a simple third and seventh exercise. So we're going to take either the seventh or the third, or if you play a chordal instrument, you could play both of them at the same time. And we're going to work our way through the blues, and we're going to notice the great voice leading that happens in between the measures. So let's say that we're playing the B-flat blues, and we start on the third. So the third over a B-flat chord is a D. Then we're going to switch to the seventh when we see that first E-flat chord, and it's a D-flat. So notice that there is a half-step relationship between those two. Super important. Again, if you have a good chord progression, the guide tones are mostly going to follow either common tone or half-step relationships when it comes to guide tones and voice leading. So I'm going to play exercise number 1 for you. And what it basically is we're alternating between thirds and sevenths on each chord. And what we're paying particular attention to is the relationship between them, because in the further exercises in today's episode, we're going to be using these thirds and sevenths to come up with melodies that start on each of them. So I'm just going to play example number 1, which you'll find on your PDF sheet, and that is going to get the sound of the third and the seventh in your ear. First time through, I'm going to be starting on the third. Second time through, I'm going to be starting on the seventh and alternating between thirds and sevenths as the chord changes. All right, here we go. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Most of us know what the thirds and sevenths are, especially if you've been listening to this podcast for a while. That's a really, really simple thing to do. So now we're going to get into the meat of the episode, where what we're trying to do is we're trying to build melodies off of these guide tones. Starting on a third or a seventh is a really melodic thing to do. And they're probably your best choices for starting melodies, at least in the sort of beginner to intermediate phase. Then when you get more advanced, you can start from any note as you start building more developed lines. But make sure that you can start your phrases on the third and seventh before you try to actually get more complicated than that. That's a really important concept. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the seventh of each chord, and we're going to play a simple little 5-note melody that simply descends through each scale, starting on the seventh and ending on the third, right? And this is going to really teach you to be able to play the seventh of each chord on demand. So here's our 5-note descending melody, starting on the seventh, ending on the third. Pretty simple melody, but can you hear how the first note, being one of those important guide tones, really sets it off on the right foot? I mean, it really is just a segment of a scale, but it's all about which note you choose to start your line with. So now we're going to do another example. This is example number 3, where we're going to start on the third, play an ascending 5-note line that ends up on the seventh. So same kind of concept, but we're going in a different direction, and we're starting on the third instead of the seventh. So very similar, same rhythmic scheme, right? But just starting on a different note and ascending instead of descending. So what if you were to take both of those exercises and combine them? Do one measure, and then do the other one in the next measure. Do you see how many possibilities we have here? It really is kind of astounding, all the different things we can do with two little exercises that are seemingly simple until you start challenging yourself to doing different things with them. So the last example is going to give you an idea of actually playing with a little bit of rhythmic diversity. So we're still going to start with a guide tone. We're going to start on the third again, but this time we're going to play a 5-note phrase that contains a triplet. So we're still going from the third to the seventh, but now we're playing something with a little bit more rhythmic interest. And this is exercise number 4 on your PDF. Check this one out. So there's one that is both ascending and descending and gives us a little bit of rhythmic interest by simply putting a triplet in there. So I hope you can see the possibilities of this and how much you can do with it. And I promise you that if you dedicate a portion of your practice time to this, your playing is going to get a lot more melodic, and the beginnings of your phrases are going to be a lot stronger because you're going to be starting on the best notes possible. Now, you can use roots and fifths, but the thirds and the sevenths are really the strongest choice that you can make. So dig into this stuff. If you feel like you need more guidance, simply drop me an email, 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com, and we can set up a Skype lesson or whatever you want to do. I'm happy to dive into this stuff further with you because, as you can tell, I really think it's very important, and it is very important. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this week. Make sure you reach out. Tell me what you would like to see on the podcast. Sign up for that Inner Circle membership. Get some great stuff, only $5 a month. We really need your support. So show your love for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast, and we will see you next week with a brand new episode. Have a good one, everybody.